welcome to another Hollywood experience. I'm Adrian Paul.
I'm David Bethke. How are you all doing?
We're doing fabulous. I think they're doing fine out there too, David. It's been quite a month. I've been traveling everywhere, trying to get a lot of things changed up and launched.
What are you changing up? What are you launching?
Well, right now, I had 4 events through June. That's one per weekend, and all of them were on the East Coast, pretty much.
Jeez. How was that?
Midwest
That was not bad OGs for anyone who was on the East Coast. That was it's just a lot of back and forthing for Los Angeles. That's where the OGs came from.
Yeah, well, the Lakeland event we had, and then we had a Chicago event. We had a where else was I? Philadelphia. And Boston. So interesting thing, and the things that can go wrong when you do something like this are amazing. And there's silly things. I was actually having a discussion today with somebody about, she was a lady that actually opens up hotels and stuff, and she goes and does soft openings. She said, I've done like 10 of these now, but when it's a soft opening to start off with, it's kind of scary because things happen that can go wrong. And I said, yeah, I absolutely understand because, you're in the middle of doing an event and all of a sudden your bokens don't turn up or somebody doesn't make the flight and so you have to quickly scramble and figure out, and know that something can go wrong and usually ultimately will. And you just have to have a backup plan.
Yes. Yeah. Once again, it comes to the adaptation thing that we're always constantly bringing up, and it's just figuring out how to get this, whatever it is you're trying to do to work. And from what I can tell, for the most part, Sword Experience is very good at just figuring out how to get it to work. If it doesn't.
The thing is, I think whenever you do something such as this, you have to constantly change things up. And a lot of the stuff we do right now, it's like the action movies. When you're looking at action today, you do the same action over and over and over again. Eventually people are like, I've kind of seen that before, So you have to either reinvent or change things slightly so that it's as interesting, but with a different angle or made for today's audience. You know what I mean? So I think that's important to do.
Right. Well, speaking of action movies, do we want to bring him up? Let's bring him up. You bring him up. You introduce him.
I just brought Damion Poitier, and really interesting guy. We spoke actually for about 15, 20 minutes after the interview because when you see him, he had behind him a huge collection of graphic novels and books, and he's a big buff for superheroes and knowledge, and so I really admire that in him. And very interesting guy, and I think obviously he has a very famous last name, and yes, that is part of his heritage. But we'll leave that out of this. But he's into I'm always fascinated by the people that I meet. What puts them on the map? What made them do what they wanted to do? And so, we kind of discussed that a little bit. And, you'll hear in a second. But I'm going to get to that interview quickly, David, because we won't have a lot of time because we talked so much that I think, I'm going to let Monsieur Poitier. I should say so. It's very distinguished, that name, is it? Poitier.
Right, Poitier.
Hello.
Is it French? It is French, right?
Oh, I believe so.
Okay.
I mean, it could be from New Orleans. I don't know what the origination of the thing is, but maybe we'll tell you on the way out. All right, so listen, let's get to that interview, and then we'll be right back. All right, good morning. This time we're keeping it in Los Angeles. I've got Damion Poitier, a stunt. Oh, how can you put it? Like, the amount of stunts you've done and the things you've done. And the first thing we started talking about off camera was horses.
Yeah.
And I said,
I've only done a little bit with it. I'm just getting into the horse world. You have a lot more experience than I do with that.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about falling off horses and characters of horses. I mean, they're like people, and we'll talk about people and characters in a second, because that's going to be the stunt thing. But, on a horse, you just never tell what's going to happen with a horse because,
they're got moods. They got, things. One horse will be freaked out about one thing, and the other horses, I've seen a horse, plastic bag, just nope.
Yeah.
Just no plastic bag on the ground. There's a whole video. It's hilarious. There's a bunny in the road. And I think it's Ozzy Man did it. And there's a bunny in the road, and there's 2 horses, and they're like,
Yeah.
I'll find the link. I'll send it to you. But they just won't.
Yeah, do it. They won't walk past it. Yeah, the same thing. I did something when I was doing Highlander. I was filming. I was actually directing the initial opening sequences and then eventually the episode for one of them. And we had horses in the Highlands of Scotland, and the actual turf itself was soggy, and they were just putting their feet on it. They're like, we're not touching that, you know.
Yeah.
So it was kind of it was kind
like,
of,
we need you to run across. They're like,
no, they're like, no, we're not doing that. We're staying totally off of that. Yeah, so that anyway, we'll get into horses in a second. I want to know where you started your career. I mean, you started, where did you start? Because I mean, you've been in the business since early 2000s, right?
Yeah, I actually started in Florida.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
from Philly. How'd you go Philly to Florida?
Yeah, well, I wanted to do entertainment, but I was like, first I went from Philly to Massachusetts. So I was in Mass for a number of years, grew up in Mass, born in Philly, grew up in Mass. And then we headed, I was in Massachusetts, and we wanted to do, entertainment, like dip your toes in the water. Mm-hmm. Like, is this something I can do? And Florida's a lot cheaper than New York or LA. So the idea was go down to Florida, and, you had the theme parks and all that other stuff, which I ended up getting involved in. Let's go down to Florida, mess around in Orlando and get what you can out of that before, and just make sure it's viable before you head to LA or New York and, get into the real mix of it.
So what really got you interested in doing it? I mean, was it the physicality of it? Was it martial arts? Was it?
I was always an actor from childhood. I saw a Sidney Poitier movie when I was a kid, and I said, "Who's that?" Because he looked just like my grandfather. Uh-huh. I said, "Who's that?" And my mom said, "That's your cousin," because he's like my grandfather's like second cousin.
Oh, is he?
Like that. He's like second cousin, twice removed kind of thing. Right. Same island, same family, same last name. But she's like, "That's your cousin." I said, "What's he doing?" And she said, "Acting." And then like after that, I kind of realized like as an actor, as a performer, you can do and be anything. And that was very attractive to me because it's like I have a wide variety of interests. Uh-huh. And I was like, one of the ways you can learn a little bit and kind of experience those interests is through acting. You can be a thug and you can be an intergalactic conqueror. You can be everything.
Yeah, which reminds me, actually, you just talked about intergalactic conqueror. Behind you, I know a lot of you may or may not get to see this, but you have so many books on. You told me at the beginning you've got like the superhero books. You've got tell me a little bit about your book collection because it's kind of interesting.
Okay, so this is maybe a quarter. I've actually had to downscale quite a bit, and now I'm reading a lot digital because I used to carry 4 or 5 books in my bag, like hardcovers in my bag when I traveled. It just got to be too much. So now I'm mostly reading digital, but I read comics. I huge Dungeons and Dragons fan, have been since I was a little kid. Fantasy novels, some sci-fi, comic books, all of it. I've been a genre kid since jump. But my grandmother was a librarian, so she introduced me to like hard sci-fi. When I was a kid, my mom used to read science fiction. My dad was into comics and stuff. So like my whole family has been geeks. Like I'm what do you think? What do you think about
the difference between like the hardcover books now and the digital books? Is it easier? Do you think it's detrimental? What's your thoughts on it?
I like the ease of the digital because I can just scroll and I got 10 books on my phone at all times. Mm-hmm. Like there's always 10 books on my Kindle Unlimited, but I love the feel of the hardcover. I love it, but just the convenience of the digital has taken over for me, unfortunately. And it's been interesting. I'm having trouble going from series I read as a hard to digital. It's difficult for me to transfer, and I don't know why. Like series that I read as a book, I don't want to read the digital one. I want to read the book. I don't know what that is.
Right. But it's funny. I'm sure there's something, subliminal in there that because you started off in that, it's kind of like you're like, I'm not changing over to that at the moment.
This is the medium for this.
It's exactly. Exactly. Okay, I sidetracked a little bit from what because I took you off the Florida bit, but because I was kind of interested in your books and so. Right. And we'll get back to that again later on because I think it also applies to part of your career as well as what you've done. So you were in Florida, and so how did you get down to Florida? You're like, okay, I'm going down to Florida. Where'd you go first? Like Orlando or Miami?
Or definitely Orlando. It was Orlando because like I said, the theme parks, and there was actually some things shooting there at the time, and so we were like, let's head down there. And I was introduced to the world of stunts completely because when I was in Massachusetts, and I started training in martial arts. I knew I wanted to do action movies. It's like, I'm gonna do movies, I'm gonna do action movies. Everybody wants to do action movies. And it's like, I want to at least have the training to be able to do it. So I made sure I had some martial arts training. So when I went down to Florida, there was an audition for a low budget martial arts movie. And myself and my partner, we went, one of my good friends, we went in there and we did the audition because he was my sparring partner and my demo partner for all of our martial arts. And just the fact that, you know, I'm a big guy, and I did a rollout. What is it? Not a rollout. What is it? Spin out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you the butterfly spin out.
Oh, okay, yes,
and hit the ground, and they were like, a guy that size doing it. So I caught the attention of the local stunt troupe down there, and eventually they introduced me. They kept me along. I did a couple demos with them, and they introduced me to Glenn Wilder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Glenn saw me, and he said he had Sheena the Queen of the Jungle coming up, and that's a, you know, it's one of the spin-offs from, you know, all the genre stuff you guys had going on. Yeah. And it took place in Africa, and there were like 5 black stunt guys in Florida. He's like, "You want to be a stunt man?" and I was like, "Well, you know, it'll give me a lot of action experience. It'll get me into business. It'll get me a good, humble foundation for learning how things work." Uh-huh. And you know, once you actually realize what stunt guys do, it's incredible. Yeah. So I was like, "Yes, please."
What was your first feeling once you got on Sheen? I mean, because that was obviously the first thing they brought you on. And so what was it like, kind of an eye opener? Was it like, how much did you learn from it?
I learned so much, and I really appreciate coming from that aspect of the business, because, you know, it's you're as a stunt person, you're not cast and you're not crew.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah,
you're in this like kind of in between.
You're place. You're in your own spot.
And depending on how people treat you, you know, or how people see you, or your department, you from show to show, you'll be treated very differently.
Yeah. So how they react to that department itself, right?
Oh yeah, and that's, you know, that's on sometimes on a coordinator, or one of the producers may either have a love for stunts or a disdain for stunts. You know, so it's
yeah.
So, you know, it's.
Actually, we worked on the same show. Do you know that?
Which?
Charmed.
Oh, really?
At the same time, yeah. I did an episode of Charmed. So
nice.
You did a stunt. You did a stunt on that, right? In 2003. Actually,
yeah, I did
probably around the same time as I was doing it. Actually.
Yeah, I ended up with an acting role too on that one. A little one. Yep. I was one of the when they went to Valhalla. I was one of the warriors they pulled out of Valhalla.
So you had a couple of lines there, did you?
Yep.
What was the first? What was your first speaking role then in movies?
First speaking role. Oh, Malibu's Most Wanted, I think, was it. It was with Jamie Kennedy.
Oh, okay.
It was that one where he was the you know, the guy from Malibu who became a gangster, yada yada. It was let's see, Terry Crews was in that, Anthony Anderson was in that. You know,
you got quite a few names in that, and that was your first.
Yeah, it's like when you.
That was your first speaking role, right? Okay.
Yeah, and it was a combined line with a bunch of people, so it was. It's pretty funny.
So you went? Did you stay in Florida after that, or did you come back? Did you decide to go to New York or Los Angeles?
I did 4 years in Florida, and I probably should have left after 2. Once I had my card, there was really no reason to be there anymore, because things started like, there was a little spike in shows, and then it kind of started slowing down shortly after. Orlando does that, you know, they'll get like 2 or 3 shows, and then it'll be nothing for like 7 years.
Well, it also depends on the tax credit situation, how they handle that. And so when the different governments come in and they change the tax situation, people are like, well, I will or I won't shoot there. You know,
producers wander out, and then they change it again. They wander back in.
Exactly. So, Angel, let me talk a little bit about Angel. You did 17 episodes of Angel. Right.
More, actually. I think I did like 34. I only listed 17.
Oh, wow. Okay, because that's what I'm looking at right now. So you, all as a stunt double, or did you have roles in that as well?
No, all doubling J. August Richards as he played Gunn on the show. So I doubled him for, I think it was more. I know it was more than was listed. I'm not exactly sure how many episodes. But I was in there.
Did you find it different being on a long running series compared to what you've done before? You know, going back, you see the same people. Did you see a rhythm happening? Were you accepted in the department type of area a little bit more? You know, I mean,
right. Yeah, it was really it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Angel. I once again, great learning experience. You know, once you get on a long term, it gets a little different. And he didn't have stuff every episode. So depending on who was in there, I could walk in, see who was working, and know what the day was going to be like. Right. You know, because you had some people that were like, oh yeah, and some people were like, oh you know, so it was kind of fun. And some of that's on you, because I have a rather large personality, so trying to crunch it into stunts sometimes didn't work out for me.
How tall are you?
So
how tall are you?
6'4".
Exactly. There's when
6'4".
large personalities. It's just size anyway. You actually played. Technically, you were the first Thanos as well, weren't you?
Yes.
Technically,
yes.
right?
The only live action one.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So when I read that, I'm like, okay, he's probably he's going to be at least over 6'3", so 6'4".
Yeah.
It's a decent size. But the when you were talking about a second ago, which I thought was interesting, and I talk a lot about this with different people, is you see some actors or see some stunt people, and you say, "Oh, I'm working with that person," or "Oh, I'm working with that person," and what's the reason for that in a sense for you? Is it because of their experience? Is it because of their attitude? What do you think that is?
Well, it's one of the things is we're all people. We all have good days and bad days. We all have, we'll run into somebody and it'll be a bad first impression, and that'll affect how you work with that person until something happens and your impression changes. But it's really about, where they are in the day, how long we've been on set, who's directing, who's all the different things that combine to make the day really affect how, your interaction with someone's going to be. Some people like to hit.
Yeah.
Some people are very afraid of being hit. Some people, everybody's got different things. Some people, there's actually people that hit that I was like okay with because there was just a level of contact that would help them perform.
Correct. Right. Yeah.
And it wasn't egregious contact. It was just, I'm going to tap you.
Right.
And when you know that, when you get that rhythm with someone, it's easy. And you're comfortable with it. So it's like, okay. So
I find that also with weapons as well, because with weapons and that there's a targeting issue, because you always have to target. You make sure you know your target. If you're dealing with competition, that's because you're looking at trying to get a point, or if you're in martial arts, it's trying to knock the person out at that person. If you're doing it for choreography, you're doing it to keep the partner safe because they know where it's coming. And the same thing happens with the strength of the hit as to where it's coming. And so I'm totally with you with that, because I know there's many times where there's a level between hitting too hard and not hitting hard enough. And then there's that midpoint where you go, okay, yeah, I can take hit me a little harder, or just, or don't hit me as hard. But some people can't change that up. Have you ever come across that where you've gone, this is just not working?
Yeah. And you power through. There's a look you have with the coordinator. You look at him and
this
go,
ain't working. Yeah.
And they go, and then you do one or two and they switch out, they just they go, okay, we're going to do tight shots. Like there's some coordinators that are very good and you'll give them the look and they go, okay, we're just going to get really tight coverage on the actor. And then we'll switch out and do the stunt double for the wide, and they'll get them out of there really fast and you just get it. And then you can move forward, so it really is who you're working with, who your team is. Like your team is, there's a few stunt coordinators out there that call me and I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. I don't need details. I don't want to know, what I'm working on, where I'm going. They just call me and I'm like, yes. There's other stunt coordinators like, hey, are you available? And I'm like, well, what do you need me for? And how long is it going to be? Where is it? And what's the gag? And who's working on it? And what's the budget on it? There's certain people where you want to get all the details because they work differently than you do. I'll put it that way.
Right.
And other people who work very much the same way you do. And it's nice to work with those.
Do you specialize in anything particular that you like to do, when you're doing action stuff? Because
mostly fights.
Mostly fights?
Yeah, I'm not much, I've done some driving stuff. I've done a little bit of high work, done a little bit of water work. I like the fights, It's always been...
and you're getting into horse. You keep talking about getting into horses now. Is that for stunts or is that for pleasure?
No, that's for pleasure. And, I've actually been leaning out of the stunt world. Into more speaking roles because it just at a certain point you have to figure out if you want to coordinate and be responsible for everything that's going on and any little injury and all the planning, or if you want to move into a different aspect. And as I came in as an actor, and then kind of ended up in stunts and it got really good to me and I met some wonderful people and had incredible experiences. I got in that nice niche and stayed there for a long time, and it was like, all right, I think we need to figure out what's next. So, I've actually been doing pretty good with making the transition, but every once in a while I'll get a call and I'm like, ooh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
And you go, I think I'm going to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, I'll do that.
Which actually brings me back to what we were talking about a little earlier, which is the comic book world. So when they called you up and said, oh, we're going to do Captain America Civil War, you were like, probably not. I don't want to do that, right?
Yeah, I was like, no, really, Captain. I was like, do I have to? That's a lot. Okay, if you insist. It was kind of an interesting because coming off of Thanos and completely and utterly missing all of the momentum from that, which I did. I just completely was unable to capitalize on that momentum at all. And going into doing a more of a stunty kind of thuggish role was interesting, but it was like good people, a lot of fun, being on that set, being with those people, and just, there's a play ball aspect of it, whereas it's like I'm here to work and enjoy and do these projects. I don't. Where do you hold yourself? Where am I? Am I at this level? What level am I at? What am I willing to do? Or what's so? It was an interesting curating measurement for me of, okay, you did that and now you're going to do this. Is that cool?
did you find it a difference going between larger productions compared to smaller productions? Because obviously there's a lot more people on a much larger budget movie compared to smaller budget movies. But what about the work atmosphere? Was that different for you at all?
It's always different, and with a smaller one, you very much need a much better crew, a much tighter crew when you want a smaller one, because otherwise, things just get drawn out and they're painful. Yeah, and it's when they're just like, oh, there's a problem, just throw some money at it. It gets a lot easier than when it's
just throw some money at it, he'll fix it.
I stole that from Kevin Smith when he's talking about his when he went and did one of the Jay and Silent Bobs. He said he was, for all of me and all these trouble, and he said there was one they were just throwing money at it. And I experienced that on set where it's just like, oh, okay, we'll do another day. Or we'll come back in a few weeks and do it. And like for Civil War, they went back and rebuilt that set a few months later. We went in and did reshoots.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. And it's like, so, and then there's sets where it's like, okay, you broke the lamp, the shoot's over. We only had that one lamp and it wasn't supposed to be broken. What are we going to do? It's been established, tape it together, So,
I mean, the funny thing was after that, I'm looking at some of the stuff that you did. You did Thor, you did Halo, you did Captain America: Civil War, you did all. Mm-hmm. Do you think it kind of do that in the stunt world? Mm-hmm. Are you kind of, because as an actor, a lot of the time you play a certain role, and you get kind of typecast in a sense in that type of role. Do you think that happens in the stunt world as well? That you kind of go, well, he's doing that type of stuff, so we're good at doing that, or is it a little bit more general?
Well, it depends on, honestly, size and ability. Mm-hmm. It's if you're a 5'10", medium complected white guy that has a lot of talent, you're going to work all the time because there's a lot of guys that size.
Right.
And it depends on what crew you get involved with. I'm larger, so there's only, there's like 6 or 7 actors I'm going to double, and that's about it. So, and then it's, for indie stuff, I'll do some creature stuff, I'll do some makeup and things like that. But in terms of getting typecast, it's really about what the call is for. How much do they need somebody that's your size that has your abilities? Right. So it's really, that's more of a I can do this. That would be more of a bit entertainment, like where the entertainment industry thing is, rather than in terms of, back when Angel and Buffy were going on, there were a lot of things where you had a lot of creatures going in. Every week they had Monsters of the Week, so you'd always be getting calls because they needed bigger guys to be these monsters.
Right.
Vampires.
Was that hard? Was that hard doing the prosthetics on that? Because I've had a few times this prosthetic, not a lot, but I know when people just stay there for the entire day to do one shot and they're literally doing that prosthetic makeup. Have you been in that position before?
Oh yeah, I love prosthetics. I personally, I know it's different. A lot of people have a lot of different reactions with them. I love them. I have a lot of fun because it's a complete transformation. It's that being able to be something completely else.
Right.
It's like and it's funny because depending on what you have on, it helps with your performance because you don't feel like you. It takes you out of who you are and makes it easier to be in a different place. Right.
Is it different? So okay, you're in it. It's always hard. I think this is where people don't actually realize when you're in prosthetic makeup, you still have to act. Right, you still have to be the character.
Right.
It's harder to do that when you've got this.